True crime, the quadruple murder. The Rupperswil quadruple murder is one of the most gruesome crimes in Swiss criminal history, which was committed on December 21, 2015 in the Aargau community of Rupperswil. The perpetrator's execution of the murder was characterized by cold-blooded execution, the random selection of victims, and a manipulative approach. The victims were not related to the perpetrator and did not know him. The motives of the murderer, who had no criminal record and had not previously been noticed by the police, were financial and sexual. On the morning of December 21, 2015, the fire department was called to a fire in a residential building. The rescue workers found the bodies of 4 people while extinguishing the fire. It quickly became clear that the victims had been killed before the fire broke out. On that particular morning, Thomas Nick observed a family's house in Rupperswil. At that time, the 48-year-old mother, her partner, her 13 and 19-year-old sons, and the older son's 21-year-old girlfriend were staying there. The perpetrator waited until the mother's partner left the house and went to work. He then gained entry to the house by using a fake business card to pose as a school psychologist at the younger son's school. He alleged that the family's youngest son was involved in bullying a classmate who subsequently committed suicide. After a conversation with him, he threatened the son with a knife and forced the mother to tie up the older son and his girlfriend with the cable ties they had brought with them. In the following 3.5 hours, Nick implemented the sexual and violent fantasies that had haunted him since the summer of 2015. The family's 13-year-old son served as a projection surface for his pedophile tendencies. Nick had repeatedly ensured that he met the boy seemingly by chance, and each time he experienced a thrill, a feeling of happiness, as the public prosecutor states. According to the investigators' findings, in addition to fulfilling his sexual fantasies, he imagined stealing around 30,000 francs. The accused planned to kill everyone present right from the start. He forced the mother to get cash. The frightened mother then withdrew 1,000 euros at an ATM at the Creditarbank Lenzburg in Rupperswil, and at the Aargauisch Cantonal Bank counter in Wildegg she withdrew 98.50 Swiss francs, which is documented by surveillance cameras. As they returned, he also tied up the mother and then sexually assaulted the younger son with sex toys that he had brought with him. He captured the sexual abuse on 8 cell phone videos and then bound and gagged him too, with a kitchen knife which he had brought with him in an always packed backpack. Like all other tools, the accused cut the throats of all 4 people present. The first victim was the family's 19-year-old son, who had previously been able to break free from his bonds. He then murdered the older son's 21-year-old girlfriend and his mother in the same way. He set the bodies and the house on fire with the help of accelerant that he had brought with him to remove his traces. Not all details of the crime could be reconstructed because none of the victims survived, and some of the defendant's statements did not match the evidence. On the same day, Nick transferred the photos and films he had taken with his cell phone to his laptop. The recordings of the sexual acts were intended for the future, the indictment says. The Lenzburg-Aarau Public Prosecutor's Office states that the accused's life continued as before the crime. This applied not only to the accused's inconspicuous behavior in public, but also to his career as a criminal. Planning for a second crime began immediately. After December 21, 2015, Nick wrote a letter on his computer that allegedly came from a school director in the canton of Solothurn and a school principal. The relevant information is anonymized in the indictment. On the afternoon of December 27th, Thomas N. searched the internet for a family in the canton of Bern. He created a black and white notebook in which he neatly filed pictures of boys, all ages 11 to 15. The whole thing is provided with names and other information such as place of residence. He called the family he spied on in the canton of Bern on January 12th and 14th, 2016. According to the indictment, Nick intended to take the family members hostage and copy his murder in Rupperswil, almost one-to-one. He also planned the same crime pattern for the family from the canton of Solothurn. In this case too, the accused called the family, but they did not answer. On January 26, 2016, he went to the family's living quarters to spy on their daily routine. At this point, investigators were probably still in the dark. In February 2016, a reward of 1,000 Swiss francs was offered for information that could help solve the crime, the highest amount in Swiss criminal history. The investigation proved to be difficult because there was no relationship between Nick and his victims. This was most likely different on May 11, 2016. On that day, the accused drove his mother's car again to Solothurn, to the area where the family lived. As with the crime in Rupperswil, Nick had the fake business card of a school psychologist and an alleged letter from the school authorities in his black backpack. He had painted over the blood splatters from the first crime with a black pen. He abandoned his plan that day and returned home. On May 12, 2016, almost 5 months after the crime, the perpetrator was finally arrested. The crime was proven to him based on DNA traces and fingerprints. According to a police source, they knew that Nick was on his way to Aargau and set up a traffic stop between Rupperswil and Rohr. Nick was stopped, subjected to an alcohol test and made to blow into the tube. This is how the investigators got the suspect's DNA. This was immediately sent to the laboratory where it was compared with the DNA found at the crime scene. A direct hit. How the police identified the perpetrator remains officially under wraps. Since no information from the public had led to the conviction of the perpetrator, the cantonal government council decided to pay out the reward as a bonus to the investigators involved. The confessed perpetrator was a 33-year-old man at the time of the arrest who lived with his mother in a house in Rupperswil, 500 meters from the crime scene. He is single and said he is a student. He worked as a junior football coach and as coordinator between 2 sport clubs in the junior sector. He planned the murders in Rupperswil and chose the victim family because of his sexual interest in the younger son. During the arrest, a backpack containing an old army pistol, ropes and cable ties prepared for the bondage, and adhesive tape were seized from his house. Based on the statements of the accused, Mr. Nick, and the investigations of the law enforcement authorities, the indictment published draws a real record of horror. On March 16, 2018, the Lenzburg District Court handed down the verdict. Nick was sentenced to life imprisonment, plus detention for life for multiple murders, hostage-taking, sexual acts with a child, arson and other offences.